What if I told you that ancient Rome was not the utopian dream of grandeur and glory that it is made out to be? Prepare to peel back the layers of a civilization that, like a precious gem, glitters from the outside, but conceals a complexity, unsettling truths, and quiet tragedies within. The emperor's shadows lengthen, and the bustling crowds of the Forum have returned to the soil from which they came. But have you ever wondered about the countless lives that flickered between the shadows of these monumental structures? Have you ever paused to consider the hushed tragedies that unfolded amidst the triumphs, the quiet desperation that may have lurked behind the city's dazzling smile? You are now in the heart of a timeless city where past and present intertwine, where the ghost of Caesar still walks, and the echoes of chariot wheels mingle with the whispers of the Tiber. The spirit of ancient Rome still lives on in the very stones beneath your feet. Let the city's hushed secrets unfold before you, revealing a world of contrasts, where shadows danced with light like this video. For it is through your engagement that the spirit of learning thrives. And with that, let us step together into the annals of time, where every like is a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity and the magic that unfolds when history comes to life. And the human spirit, indomitable, carved its destiny on the very stones of an empire. Feel the energy of the city as you touch a weathered wall, imagining the hands that once carved its stones. Close your eyes and listen to the wind whispering through the ruins, carrying with it the voices of a bygone era. Around you, merchants hawk their wares, senators in flowing robes discuss politics, and the murmur of daily life serenades your every step. But just beyond the bustling marketplace, hidden from the eyes of casual visitors, lies a different world. Narrow winding alleys, dark and dank, where the air grows thick with the stench of stale waste and the cries of unseen vendors. Here amidst the labyrinthine streets, life was lived on a razor's edge, a constant struggle for survival. Tonight, we discard the marble facade. The aqueducts and Colosseum are silent. You may have heard tales of gladiators and emperors, of sprawling roads and magnificent baths. Picture this. You're strolling through the Forum, the sun-drenched marble reflecting the azure sky above. As you walk further into the heart of the city, you'll begin to hear their stories. Tales of hardship and hope, of resilience and despair. The grandeur of Rome was built on the backs of countless slaves, their silent suffering the mortar that held the empire's splendor together. But it's not just the echoes of the past that linger here. So come, dear listener, and lose yourself in the timeless embrace of ancient Rome. And now, having unveiled the face of ancient Rome, I invite you to do one simple thing. Welcome to my humble abode, or rather, let me introduce you to the insula you'll be calling home for the next few minutes. Here's everything you need to know about surviving in a Roman tenement building. Welcome to the insula, your new home, away from home. Here, the air is thick with the smells of stale waste and chamber pots, because ventilation is a luxury this place doesn't afford. To get to your front door, you have to navigate a warren of narrow passageways that are just begging for you to get lost in them. But don't worry, you'll soon memorize the route so you can make it from one end of the building to the other without bumping into any walls. Because repairing broken bones isn't exactly high on the list of priorities around here. The stairs are steep and broken in places, so watch your step because falling down them is no fun. The handrail is there for you to grab onto, but don't get too comfortable because it might collapse under your weight. And once you finally reach your floor, you'll find your apartment, one room with a dirt floor, no running water, and a roof that has seen better days. But hey, at least you have a view of the courtyard, where you can watch your fellow tenants hang their laundry or maybe get a glimpse of a cat fight in progress. The apartment's usually occupied by a family of 5 or 6 people, so you won't have much privacy, but you'll never be bored. You can always eavesdrop on your neighbors having passionate arguments about politics or religion. Or you can join in on the conversation if you like. Just try not to get stabbed. After all, this is Rome, and the streets outside your window are just dying to swallow you up. The good news is your landlord is reasonable. He only demands rent every 3 months, and he's not too bad at fixing things when they break. Like that time he patched up the roof with a few scraps of wood and some tar. It didn't stop the leak, and who knows, maybe in a few years, the emperor will remember that you exist. And then your life will be great because the emperors always take care of their poor subjects, right? Here's what you need to know about being a tenant. First off, bring your own furniture, unless you like sleeping on the floor, and watch out for collapsing chairs because the building's old and creaky. Also, food storage is a game of chance. If you're lucky, you'll get a cupboard in your apartment to keep your supplies fresh. but if not, you'll have to store them in the public areas where rodents will probably gnaw on your cheese. The apartments don't have toilets, so you'll have to use the public latrines, which are clean enough if you don't think about it too much. Just watch out for poisonous snakes, rats, and the occasional murder. There are community kitchens available, but they're usually packed, so be prepared to wait in line and bring your own cooking supplies. And finally, your personal space bubble is non-existent here, so get ready to make friends and influence neighbors. The omnipresence of urine in Roman society was truly remarkable. Beyond its uses in cleaning, and as a component of the garum-making process, urine had yet another surprising application: perfume. In a society that lacked basic plumbing, perfumery played a crucial role in masking the myriad of unpleasant odors that permeated daily life. The streets, the markets, the public baths, all were filled with a cacophony of smells that could quickly turn stale and putrefy without proper ventilation or disposal systems. Perfumes, made from a mixture of aromatic substances like frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, and flowers, were used liberally to mask these odors and create a more pleasant atmosphere. Street vendors selling perfumes, a common sight in Roman cities, attest to the widespread use and demand for these aromatic concoctions. These perfumes, however, were not just used for personal hygiene or social niceties. They held deep cultural and religious significance. Incense, for example, was an integral part of Roman religious practices, often burnt during ceremonies and rituals to honor the gods. Myrrh, with its balsamic fragrance, was not only used in perfumes, but also in the embalming of the dead, a testament to its enduring, some might say, cloying nature. In the absence of modern deodorants, perfumes became an essential tool for managing the physical challenges of daily life, a cultural mainstay deeply entwined with religion, commerce, and daily living. Yet amidst this aromatic landscape, the simpler pleasures of nature were not lost on the Romans. Their appreciation for flowers, evident in their choice of perfume ingredients, shows a keen awareness of the natural world around them. The bustling Roman marketplace was a riot of colors, textures, and yes, smells. The sight of exotic spices, the feel of smooth marble, and the aroma of freshly baked bread created a sensory symphony that was integral to the Roman experience. Despite the crowds, the noise, and the chaos, there was a certain charm to this urban environment. It was a microcosm of the empire itself, a melting pot of cultures, a hub of commerce, and a stage for daily life. To truly understand Rome is to immerse oneself in this sensory landscape, to navigate its bustling streets, to haggle in its crowded market, and to appreciate the simple pleasures amidst the urban chaos. So the next time you find yourself amidst the throngs of a busy marketplace, take a moment to appreciate the sensory overload, the vibrant colors, the enticing aromas, and the sheer energy of human interaction. It is, in essence, a tribute to the timeless legacy of Rome, a city that continues to captivate and inspire, even in its ancient ruins. In this part, we'll delve into what it took to be a Roman man. And while most people imagine the lives of Roman men through the lens of the elite and powerful, the reality for the average Roman man was vastly different. The hierarchical structure of Roman society, with its clear divisions between the wealthy elite, the middle class, and the lower classes, dictated strict codes of conduct and expectations. Life in the sprawling Roman cities was equally challenging, particularly for the vast majority of the population who resided in insulae multi-story apartment buildings. While they possessed some practical medical knowledge, particularly in areas like military surgery and the treatment of wounds, their understanding of anatomy, physiology, and the causes of disease was severely limited by the lack of advanced diagnostic tools and the prevailing medical theories of the time, such as the humoral theory. Medical practices, while sometimes surprisingly advanced for their time, could also be painful, ineffective, or even bizarre. Remedies might include strange concoctions of herbs, animal parts, or even gladiator blood, believed to possess restorative properties and vital energy. The high mortality rates, particularly among infants and children, were a grim reality, a direct consequence of poor sanitation, rampant infectious diseases, and the absence of modern medical knowledge. Life expectancy was short, and the constant threat of illness loomed large over every household, a pervasive anxiety that shaped daily decisions. Epidemics were frequent and devastating, sweeping through the densely populated cities with terrifying speed, often wiping out significant portions of the population. The lack of effective pain relief, antibiotics, or even basic antiseptics meant that even minor injuries or infections could quickly prove fatal, turning a simple cut into a life-threatening condition. These structures often rose to dizzying heights, sometimes 6 or 7 floors, crammed together in dense urban blocks, creating a labyrinthine network of narrow streets and dark alleys. Now let's get to know about Roman women. They were frequently poorly constructed, built quickly and cheaply by speculative landlords seeking maximum profit, making them notoriously prone to collapse. Imagine the constant anxiety of living in a building that could, at any moment, give way, especially during heavy rains or minor tremors, a fear that was a very real part of daily life for many urban Romans. The threat of fire was ever present, fueled by open flames for cooking and heating, often in crowded, wooden buildings with inadequate ventilation and a lack of fire safety regulations. A single spark from a cooking brazier or an overturned lamp could engulf an entire insula in minutes, trapping its inhabitants in a terrifying inferno. The narrow streets below were a cacophony of noise, the incessant rumble of carts, particularly at night when commercial traffic was permitted, the shouts of vendors hawking their wares, the clamor of crowds moving through the congested, the braying of animals, and the incessant hammering and chiseling of ongoing construction projects. Sleep, for many, would have been a luxury, constantly interrupted by the relentless rhythm of the city, a perpetual hum of activity that rarely ceased. Waste disposal was rudimentary. Open sewers ran through the streets, serving as conduits for both rainwater and human waste, and it was not uncommon for refuse, both human and animal, to be simply thrown from windows into the alleys below, adding to the general filth and unpleasantness of the urban environment. The very act of existing in these crowded, unsanitary, and dangerous conditions required a profound level of endurance and adaptation, a constant negotiation with the harsh realities of a densely populated ancient metropolis, where personal space was a luxury and safety a fleeting concept. For men, there was little room for deviation from these norms. Duty, honor, and reputation were paramount, shaping every aspect of a man's life, from his interactions within his family to his standing in the community. Within the family, the concept of pietas, which encompassed obedience, respect, and care for one's elders, was central. Sons were expected to obey their fathers without question, and the father held absolute authority within the household. The weight of upholding this image, of maintaining the family's honor, was a constant pressure. Any failure could bring shame not only upon himself, but also his entire family. Moreover, the competitive nature of Roman society, where social status and recognition were highly coveted, added another layer of complexity. Climbing the social ladder through achievements in law, politics, or military service was a dream for many, but the path to success was fraught with intense competition and the constant need to outdo others. It demanded ambition, drive, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. Let's start with the economic realities of Roman life. For many, life was a constant struggle against poverty. Unemployment was widespread, especially among the lower classes, and the informal economy that sprang up around the city, while offering some opportunities, was fraught with its own challenges and risks. The weight of crushing poverty, the desperation that drove individuals to extreme measures for survival, and the social stigma associated with poverty were all harsh realities of life in the ancient world. It required a level of fortitude and adaptability that is difficult to comprehend today. Now let's discuss family and society. The dynamics of family and social relationships in Roman society were complex and rigid. Next, let's examine the challenges of daily life. Finally, let us consider health and medicine. The Roman understanding of disease was rudimentary, often intertwined with superstition, religious belief, and a limited grasp of scientific principles. So being a Roman man was far from easy. It required strength, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to duty, honor, and family. In the sprawling heart of ancient Rome, where power and corruption intertwined like the branches of an ancient oak, there existed a secret that threatened to shatter the very foundations of the empire. Our tale today delves into the labyrinthine corridors of imperial intrigue, where whispers of debauchery and regicide echoed through the hallowed halls of the palace. Our story begins with the enigmatic Mithraea Sabina, a former slave turned empress, the second wife of the Emperor Nero. Her influence over the young emperor was profound, akin to the sway a siren might have over sailors navigating treacherous seas. According to a version of events narrated by the Roman historian Tacitus, Nero, driven by a frenzy of suspicion, summoned Pythagoras to the palace. It encapsulates the arbitrary nature of power, the corrosive effects of unchecked paranoia, and the tragic fall of a once promising young ruler. So ends our tale of intrigue, betrayal, and death in the heart of ancient Rome. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support our channel, please remember to subscribe and leave a comment. Also, be sure to tune in next time for more captivating historical tales. Until then, stay strong, and remember, in the darkest times, the flame of truth shall always prevail. Nero's actions, driven by an insatiable lust for control and a morbid fascination with death, ultimately led to the destruction of his own legacy. There, in the opulent setting of the room of the 120 bed, a place designed for relaxation and revelry, the emperor confronted the accused. Nero's rage, it is said, was as tempestuous as a winter storm, shaking the very foundations of the room with his thunderous accusations. Pythagoras, trapped in the eye of this imperial storm, attempted to defend himself, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. In a moment of irrationality, Nero, according to Tacitus's account, unleashed a swarm of guards, and Pythagoras was swiftly dragged away, his fate sealed. Outside, a hastily assembled crowd, manipulated by the machinations of the imperial court, bayed for his blood, their demands for retribution echoing through the Roman street. Thus, in the heart of the empire's grandeur, a philosopher met his end, not by the stroke of a sword or the thrust of a dagger, but by the calculated machinations of an emperor consumed by paranoia. While her exact role in Nero's transformation remains a subject of historical debate, her presence undoubtedly exacerbated the emperor's descent into tyranny. Accusations of poison, a recurring motif in Nero's inner circle, swirled around Mithraea, painting a grim picture of the lengths to which the quest for power would extend. Some historians even posit that she orchestrated the demise of Nero's first wife, Octavia, a mere pawn in her relentless game of imperial ambition. Amidst this atmosphere of suspicion and intrigue, a new player entered the decadent chess game of the Roman court, Pythagoras, a philosopher and a member of the Ephremi tribe, renowned for their wisdom and knowledge of poisons. Rumors, those insidious serpents of the court, slithered through the palace walls, suggesting Pythagoras had ensnared. As the whispers grew louder, a chill wind of fear began to sweep through the court. Nero, already plagued by anxieties of a power threatened, found himself drawn into a maelstrom of paranoia and distrust. In the annals of history, there exists a chilling account of Pythagoras's fate, a fate sealed in the infamous room of the 100. The death of Pythagoras, though shrouded in the mists of time and disputed by some historians, serves as a potent symbol of Nero's regime. As the sun sets over the ruins of the Roman Empire, it's a story that echoes through the ages, a reminder that, even in the heart of greatness, the seeds of destruction are often sown. Did you know that Nero spent money like it was no tomorrow? I mean, this guy literally set Rome on fire so he could rebuild it and make himself look like a hero. Talk about a hot move, but that's not where it stops. And the historian Suetonius Tranquillus, who wrote a tell-all book about Nero's reign called The 12 Caesars, but Nero silenced them, too, proving that he was willing to do whatever it took to stay in power. This guy seriously thought he was the next big thing in poetry, music, and acting. He was actually quite charming and charismatic as a young man, but power and adulation went to his head, and he became the very definition of a spoiled brat. He threw tantrums, he lashed out at anyone who dared to defy him, and he surrounded himself with yes-men who only told him what he wanted to hear. In the end, Nero's artistic obsessions and sadistic tendencies led to his downfall. The people of Rome grew tired of his tyranny and revolted against him. When things got too hot, he fled the city and took his own life at the age of 30. He performed epic poems and tragic plays, sang love songs, and even composed an epic poem about his own life. Talk about narcissism. But here's the thing, Nero wasn't just a wannabe artist. He was actually pretty good. He could recite poetry from memory, play the lyre, and sing in different styles. He was also a natural actor with a booming voice and impressive stage presence. But that didn't stop him from being a total douchebag. He forced people to listen to his performances, sometimes for hours on end, and even chained chariots to ensure victory in the races. He also threw gold coins from a tower, just for fun, probably because he knew he had enough cash to spare. And don't even get me started on how he built his extravagant golden palace, the Mithraea, right in the middle of the city ruins. Like, come on man, have some empathy. Anyway, let's talk about why Nero might have been the first prototypical mad king of Rome. First off, he started his reign by killing his own mother, Agrippina the Younger. Yeah, you heard that right. This guy had a serious mummy issue. He got rid of her because he didn't like her controlling influence and wanted to assert his dominance. But then he went too far. He unleashed a wave of persecutions targeting anyone who had helped his mother or was suspected of disloyalty. He even extended his paranoia to his own family, kicking off a chain of events that led to the deaths of 3 of his siblings. You know, you've gone too far when even your siblings are plotting to kill you. But that's what happened with Nero. His sister Octavia tried to team up with their uncle, the exiled Claudius, to take Nero down. But Nero outsmarted them and took out both of them, solidifying his power over the Julio-Claudian dynasty. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were people who still opposed Nero, like the philosopher Seneca. Now let's talk about Nero's infamous persecution of Christians. This guy was into sadism, and he found pleasure in torturing people, especially Christians. He blamed them for starting the Great Fire of Rome, and used that as an excuse to persecute them. He also wanted to distract people from his own failures, and shift the blame to someone else. So he decided to make the Christians the scapegoats. He arrested them, tortured them, and executed them in gruesome ways, like throwing them into the river to drown, or setting them on fire to light up his garden parties. It was a classic case of deflect and destroy. But you know what else Nero was into? Art. The thing is, Nero wasn't born a tyrant. So, there you have it. Nero, the first prototypical mad king of Rome. A cautionary tale of what happens when power goes to the head of a spoiled young man. The logistics of Among the most disturbing episodes of Nero's personal life was his relationship with a young boy named after kicking his pregnant wife, Poppaea Sabina, to death in a fit of rage. Nero became infatuated with Sporus, who bore a striking resemblance to Poppaea. His increasingly erratic behavior, combined with heavy taxation to fund his extravagant projects. And it is to one of these enigmatic mysteries that we now turn our attention. A world of clandestine rituals and ancient beliefs that thrived in the shadows of the empire. In this journey through time, we've uncovered not just myths, but the echoes of a civilization that continues to shape our world. As we bring this episode to a close, we're left with more questions than answers. How deeply did these practices impact Roman society? What were the broader implications for the individuals involved? And how do these hidden rituals reflect the complexities of life in ancient Rome? Your engagement with these questions enriches our understanding of ancient Rome. Share your thoughts, because in your comments lies more history. Together, let us keep the conversation going and continue to unearth the hidden stories that make ancient Rome so enduring. And the growing discontent among the military and the populace led to a series of conspiracies and revolts across the empire. The administrative burden of maintaining control over a vast and increasingly restive empire, coupled with Nero's misallocation of resources and his focus on personal gratification rather than effective governance, contributed to a gradual erosion of imperial authority. Faced with a Senate that declared him a public enemy and the Praetorian Guard abandoning him, Nero fled Rome in desperation. The details of his flight, the routes taken, the limited retinue accompanying him, and the desperate attempts to find refuge highlight the sudden and complete collapse of his imperial power. Cornered and with no hope of escape, he ultimately took his own life in 60 AD, reportedly uttering the famous last words, "Qualis archifax per." What an artist dies in me. His death plunged Rome into a brief but brutal period of civil war, known as the Year of the Four Emperors, a testament to the instability his tyrannical reign had created. The subsequent political vacuum and the struggle for succession involved complex military campaigns, diplomatic negotiations, and the shifting loyalties of various legions and provincial governors. Nero's legacy remains a complex tapestry of artistic aspiration and monstrous cruelty. He stands as a stark reminder of the corrupting influence of absolute power, a figure whose life and reign continue to fascinate and repulse in equal measure. His story, while extreme, offers a chilling glimpse into the darker side of Roman imperial rule. A world where the lives of millions could be shaped, and often shattered, by the whims of a single individual. In a truly bizarre and disturbing act, Nero had Sporus castrated and then married him in a public ceremony, forcing him to wear women's clothes and adopting him as his wife. This act of extreme decadence and psychological manipulation further illustrates the depths of Nero's depravity and the unchecked power he wielded. The details of the castration, a complex medical procedure in ancient times, would have involved specific surgical instruments and techniques, likely performed by skilled, albeit unwilling, medical practitioners. The subsequent public marriage ceremony would have followed certain Roman legal and social convention, despite its highly unusual nature, involving witnesses and formal declarations. It was a grotesque display of imperial power, where human beings were treated as mere objects to satisfy the emperor's twisted desires. Sporus was not the only victim of Nero's sexual excesses and cruelty. Historical accounts suggest a pattern of abusive relationships and a profound disregard for the dignity of others, particularly those in vulnerable positions. This behavior, while shocking to modern sensibilities, was a stark manifestation of the absolute power that could corrupt even the most basic human empathy. The daily life of Sporus, forced into this role, would have been one of constant psychological duress, a life devoid of personal agency, entirely dictated by the emperor's capricious will. The management of the imperial household, including the numerous enslaved individuals and courtiers, would have been a complex logistical undertaking, ensuring that Nero's every desire, no matter how perverse, was met with efficiency and discretion. Downfall and legacy. Nero's reign, however, was destined for a violent end. But beyond the emperors and the grand narratives of power, ancient Rome held other secrets, other hidden truths waiting to be unearthed. Rome, a city synonymous with power, wealth, and grandeur, hosted within its bustling streets a secret, a silent revolution of faith. Amidst the clamor of chariot wheels and the murmurs of emperors' triumphs, there thrived a subterranean world of mystery cults. These cults, shrouded in secrecy, offered an alternative path to the divine, one that resonated deeply with the spiritual longings of many Romans. To truly comprehend the enigma of the cult of Mithras, we must first peel back the layers of mystery that have shrouded it since its inception. Unfortunately, our task is not an easy one, for the cult deliberately shrouded its practices in secrecy, leaving behind few traces of its internal rituals and core beliefs. The mystery, as it turns out, is part of the very essence of the cult, and leading this enigmatic movement was the cult of Mithras, a faith whose very nature remains tantalizingly obscure. This is partly due to the secretive nature of the cult, but it's also because much of what we consider historical records about the lived experiences of ordinary people seeking to connect with the divine in a world that often felt indifferent to their spiritual longings. The cult of Mithras may have thrived in the shadow, but its influence on the spiritual landscape of the Roman world was undeniable. And as we continue to explore the hidden corners of history, we uncover not just the stories of gods and emperors, but the quiet, persistent search for meaning. Unites us with the Romans of the past in ways we never imagined. Such as written accounts and monumental inscriptions were produced by the elite, and often ignored or dismissed these mystery cults. The voices of ordinary Romans, the people who flocked to the mysteries for solace, community, and spiritual fulfillment, have been largely silenced by the sands of time. This leaves us with an incomplete picture of Mithraism and other mystery cults, a fragmented mosaic that hints at a rich and vibrant tapestry of faith. Mithras, the central figure of this faith, was celebrated as the god of light, truth, and contracts. The cult also promised its followers tangible benefits, most notably a direct and personal relationship with the divine, in a society that often relegated spirituality to the realm of public spectacle. Mithraism offered a more intimate, emotionally charged connection with the gods. This was achieved through secret rituals and exclusive membership, creating a sense of community and shared purpose among its followers. The mysteries, as they were called, were not merely religious ceremonies. They were experiences designed to transform the lives of those who participated in them. He represented an ethical monotheism that starkly contrasted with the polytheistic traditions of Rome. Across the empire, the Mithraea were not grand structures meant to impress the public, but rather underground or hidden chambers that concealed the sacred rituals from prying eyes. This secrecy added an air of exclusivity and heightened the sense of the numinous, the awe-inspiring presence of the divine in these secret places. It was as if the very concealment of their practices made the rituals more potent, more spiritually efficacious. This theological concept, the idea of a single, all-encompassing God, found fertile ground among the intellectual elite of Roman society, those who grappled with questions of existence, morality, and the purpose of life. The philosophical undertones of Mithraism offered an alternative to the more simplistic, ritualistic forms of worship that were prevalent at the time. Our journey through the hidden truths of ancient Rome now leads us into the shadows, into the realm of secret societies and enigmatic beliefs that flourished beneath the surface of public life. While the official Roman pantheon of gods, with their grand temples and public festivals, was widely worshipped, offering civic and communal expressions of piety, many Romans, seeking a deeper spiritual connection, a more personal path to salvation, or perhaps a sense of belonging in a vast and often impersonal empire, turned to what were known as mystery religions. These cults, characterized by their secretive rituals, exclusive membership, and promises of spiritual enlightenment or a blessed afterlife, offered an alternative to the formal, often civic-oriented, state religion. They provided a sense of community and a shared purpose that resonated deeply with individuals who felt a disconnect from the more public and less emotionally engaging state cults. The allure of these mysteries lay in their promise of direct, personal experience with the divine, often through symbolic rites and shared meals, fostering a profound sense of camaraderie among initiates. Among the most fascinating, and perhaps the most mysterious, of these was the cult of Mithraea. What was this enigmatic faith? How did it gain such a foothold in Roman society? And why, despite its widespread popularity, do we know so little about its inner workings? The very secrecy that defined these cults is precisely what makes them so intriguing to us today, offering tantalizing glimpses into the private spiritual lives of Romans, a world where personal belief often diverged significantly from public observance. The human need for meaning, for connection to something larger than oneself, found diverse expressions within the Roman world, and the mystery cults provided a unique avenue for this profound search. But amidst this subterranean surge of spirituality, one question echoed through the ages: what was the true nature of the cult of Mithraea? Emerging as it did from the distant lands of Persia, Mithraism introduced a foreign deity into the heart of Roman society, a deity whose attributes were dramatically different from the Olympians of Roman mythology. Yet the appeal of Mithraism did not end with abstract theological concepts. However, the cult's most enduring symbol was its temple, or rather its temples, for the Romans built them wherever they spread. Yet, despite its popularity, evidence of the cult's existence is surprisingly scant. As we stand at the precipice of this subterranean world, we realize that the history of religion is not just about grand temples and powerful priests. These Mithraea were perhaps the most striking feature of the cult, and their unique architecture speaks volumes about the nature of Mithraea. Unlike the grand open-air temples dedicated to the Roman gods, which were designed for public display and communal worship, the Mithraea were almost invariably built underground, or, at least, designed to evoke the feeling of a subterranean cave. This deliberate choice of location and design was symbolic, often interpreted as representing the cosmos or the cave where Mithraea, with some arguing for a strict separation of the two and others suggesting a more fluid relationship. It is possible that the relationship between Mithraism and Roman religion varied over time and across different regions of the empire, influenced by local customs and the attitudes of the ruling authorities. The persecution of Christians in the Roman world, particularly under the emperors Nero and Domitian, may have also contributed to the secretive practices of Mithraea. The cult's enduring legacy, evident in its architectural remains, and the countless works of art it inspired, serves as a testament to the power of mystery and the human desire for a deeper understanding of the cosmos and our place within it. As both religions shared a common status as outsiders and potential targets of imperial suspicion, inside, they were typically small, intimate spaces, often rectangular, with raised benches along the sides where initiates would recline during communal meals and ceremonies. While the majority of evidence points to the secluded nature of these sanctuaries, there were instances where altars, the cult's deliberate avoidance of written doctrine, its exclusive initiation rituals, and the hostile accounts of early Christian writers have left us with a distorted and incomplete picture of its beliefs and practices. Much of what we know comes from piecing together the clues from a few dozen Mithraeums that have been excavated, the enigmatic tauroctony reliefs found throughout the empire, occasional glimpse offered by Roman poets and philosophers. The result is a fascinating yet elusive mystery, a hidden world of secret rituals and esoteric symbolism that continues to captivate the imagination. And shrines dedicated to Mithras were found in more public areas, such as along roads or in private homes. This suggests that, while the core rituals and beliefs of the cult were kept secret, there may have been a more public-facing aspect to its practice, perhaps involving prayers, offerings, or simple acts of devotion. Inscriptions and archaeological finds also reveal a strong emphasis on community and fellowship within the cult, with many dedications and inscriptions mentioning the names of soldiers who shared the same military cohort or the same occupation. This suggests that membership in the cult wasn't restricted by social class or ethnicity, but it was open to anyone who wished to participate, regardless of their background. In fact, the ubiquity of Mithraea along the empire's frontiers and among the armies suggests that the cult may have served as a unifying force, bringing together people from diverse backgrounds under the banner of a shared mystery. The entrance was often narrow and unassuming, further emphasizing the exclusive and hidden nature of the cult, requiring a deliberate act of entry into a sacred, concealed space. At the far end, a central altar or a relief carving would depict the iconic scene of Mithras slaying the bull, known as the tauroctony, often flanked by two torchbearers, courts, and court. The darkness, the enclosed space, and the symbolic imagery all contributed to an atmosphere of profound mystery and spiritual introspection, creating an environment conducive to deep contemplation and shared experience. Across the vast expanse of the Roman Empire, from the bustling cities of Rome and Athens to the remote military camps on the frontiers, these underground sanctuaries of secrecy remained remarkably consistent in their architecture and purpose, reflecting a centralized, albeit secretive organizational structure. The rituals and beliefs of Mithraism were closely guarded secrets, passed down only to initiates through a series of progressive stages. We know there were 7 grades of initiation, each associated with a different planetary deity and requiring specific rites of passage. These grades, such as Corax, Nymphus, Miles, Leo, Perses, and Potter, suggest a hierarchical structure and a progressive journey towards spiritual understanding and a deeper connection with the divine. Each grade likely involves specific symbolic actions, oaths, and perhaps even trials, designed to test the initiate's commitment and understanding. The degree to which members of the cult participated in Roman civic religion or other cults is a matter of ongoing debate among scholars. Worship wasn't just confined to the shadowy recesses of underground caves. However, despite its widespread popularity, our knowledge of Mithraism is surprisingly fragmented. As we continue to explore the remnants of myth, we re-left with a profound sense of the vastness of the ancient world and the richness of human imagination. The symposium, or drinking party, was an integral part of Roman social culture, offering a space for elite men to bond, relax, and engage in intellectual discourse away from the formality of public life. However, while often portrayed as carefree revelry, symposia were also carefully choreographed events, laden with symbolism and etiquette. The symposiastic drinking horn, known as the simpulum, was far more than just a vessel. Its shape and decoration held specific meanings. For instance, the bucaro, a type of coarse red drinking cup, was associated with rustic themes and Dionysian imagery, reflecting a celebration of nature and wine. Its use was likely reserved for more intimate gatherings, or those focused on rustic pleasures. In contrast, the delicate glass or silver cups favored by the elite symbolized luxury and refinement, suitable for philosophical discussions or aesthetic appreciation. The choice of vessel could therefore signal the tone or theme of the symposium. The arrangement of furniture also played a significant role. Romans frequently used triclinium, reclining couches with cushions, allowing guests to recline at ease. These were not merely places of rest, but also symbolic markers of status. The placement and orientation of the tricliniums would carefully arrange to optimize conversation, ensure good visibility, and underscore the hierarchy among attendees. For instance, the host might occupy the central, highest position, with other couches arranged in a semicircle facing him, allowing everyone to both see and address the most important guest of honor. The host would sit on a special raised couch referred to as the primus, indicating his superior status. The decorations and architecture of the symposium space further enriched the experience. Frescoes and sculptures depicting scenes from mythology or classical literature would adorn the walls, stimulating conversation and invoking the presence of the gods or legendary heroes. Some symposia might feature temporary altars or shrines to particular deities, emphasizing the importance of divine favor in Roman culture. The transition between meals and drinking was marked by a purification ritual using a special sponge on a stick called a. This symbolized the shift in atmosphere from the more formal dining to the freer environment of the symposium. Wine played a central role in the symposium, often mixed with water in varying proportions, depending on the occasion. Garnishes such as honey, spice, or fruit added flavor, and further symbolized abundance and luxury. The symposium, while ostensibly a space for relaxation, continued the performance of social roles. Each action, from the choice of cup to the placement of couches, was laden with meaning and custom. Even the private sphere of elite Roman life was thus permeated with rules and rituals, underlining the constant pressure to conform and perform that characterized Roman society. The private lives of the Roman elite, leisure, luxury, and the illusion of privacy. The private lives of the Roman elite were a world of luxury and leisure, governed by strict social codes and rituals. For these privileged Romans, privacy was a rare commodity, and even their most intimate moments were often observed or orchestrated by others. The villas of the elite were not merely residences, but statements of power and refined taste. The Domus Transitoria, the residence of the Emperor Hadrian, exemplifies this. Built near the center of Rome, it was a sprawling complex surrounded by gardens, fountains, and even a private artificial lake, offering a tranquil retreat amidst the bustling city. Walking through the rooms, adorned with exquisite frescoes and sculptures, one can almost hear the soft murmur of elite conversations and the gentle pluck of lutes accompanying poetry readings. Life in these villas was a mixture of refined culture, intellectual pursuits, and strategic networking. Romans of the upper classes were patrons of the arts, commissioning paintings, sculptures, and mosaics to decorate their homes and public spaces. They hosted literary salons where poets and philosophers gathered to discuss the latest works and ideas. BJ interiors, especially a courtyard surrounded by columns, were designed for both aesthetics and social interaction, offering intimate spaces for private conversations or public displays of intellectual prowess. The atrium, usually at the center of the house, was another key space for social life. Here, clients or close friends would greet their patron or host, beginning the day's social obligations. The private quarters of the elite were also a realm of beauty and baths, often heated to various temperatures and decorated with mosaics were not just for hygiene, but for relaxation and socializing. The Pompeian frescoes depicting athletic youths or idealized lovers, along with the elite's penchant for perfumes and cosmetics, reveal a society that placed high importance on physical perfection and erotic beauty. The peristyle garden, a central feature of Roman elite architecture, was a microcosm of nature tamed by design, where elements of water, earth, and greenery were meticulously arranged to provide tranquility and visual delight. These gardens were designed not only for aesthetic pleasure, but also for social interaction, offering intimate spaces for private conversations or small gatherings. Their design often incorporated elements of surprise or illusion, such as hidden fountains or statues emerging from the foliage, reflecting the Roman fascination with the unexpected and the artificial. Moreover, the villas of the elite were also sites of agricultural production, housing vineyards, orchards, and even farms. These estates produced the food, wine, and decorative plants that sustained the luxurious lifestyle of the Romans, showcasing the wealth and power of their owners. Managing this productive landscape required skilled labor, from gardeners to animal herders, reflecting the extent of the elite's wealth and privilege. The entertainment of the Roman elite. From gladiators to poetry recitals, the entertainment consumed by the Roman elite was as diverse as it was expensive. While the blood sports of the amphitheaters dominated public imagination, the elite also enjoyed poetry readings, philosophical debates, and theatrical performances. Theaters like the one on the Palatine Hill were favored by the elite, who appreciated the refined drama and comedic performances. Unlike the larger public theaters, these venues featured smaller stages and more intimate seating arrangements, allowing for a more refined and exclusive theatrical experience. The private villas of the elite also provided space for their own forms of entertainment. Music, poetry, and even gladiatorial combats could be enjoyed in the secluded gardens or courtyards. For instance, the frescoes found in her, preserved in their luxurious seaside villas, depict elegant Romans listening to music, engaging in athletics, or enjoying parties, offering a glimpse into their exclusive recreational world. The elite's love for animals is also evident in the art and artifacts they collected. Statues, mosaics, and frescoes depicting hunting scenes, animal sacrifices, and even pet keeping show a fascination with the natural world, both wild and domesticated. These elite Romans kept exotic birds, dogs, and even trained bears and elephants as status symbols, reflecting their immense wealth and desire for spectacle. The private lives of the elite were thus a rich tapestry of intellectual, artistic, and even athletic pursuits, a far cry from the image of debauchery and decadence that often dominates popular narratives. The villas and private entertainment spaces of the Romans offer a window into a world of cultivated beauty and refined tastes, revealing the complexity of this often misunderstood social class. He would wake up, bathe in his private bathroom, and dress in the finest toga, ready to face the challenges of the day. After a simple breakfast, likely consisting of bread dipped in wine, he would head to the Forum, the bustling center of Roman public life, managing households, amassing wealth, and even shaping political destiny. It's equally important to recognize the constraints and privileges that defined their daily existence. The lives of the Roman elite were punctuated by a silent terror that echoed through their grand halls and haunted their lavish feasts. Despite their differences, despite their rivalries, despite their relentless pursuit of power, they were united by the chilling knowledge that tomorrow was never guaranteed. Their world, for all its grandeur, was a fragile construct, held together by a thread as thin as their reputation and as delicate as their grasp on power. Political assassinations, forced suicides, and exile were not mere historical footnotes. They were constant threats that loomed over every decision, every interaction, and every triumph. The Praetorian Guard, once the embodiment of imperial power, became notorious for their double-edged loyalty. They could elevate an emperor to power, but they could also be their undoing. Civil wars, rebellions, and the ambition of rival senators were ever-present dangers. The very institutions designed to uphold order, like the Senate itself, could turn into arenas of conspiracy and betrayal. Personal relationships were fraught with peril. Friendships could sour, alliances could fracture, and the line between cooperation and competition was often blurred. Even family ties could become battlegrounds for power struggles and jealousy. The weight of maintaining a flawless public image, the fear of scandal, and the dread of losing their social standing added another layer to their anxieties. Every public appearance, every interaction, every word spoken had to be carefully calculated. There was no room for missteps. The legacy of their forefathers, the honor of their name, and the prosperity of their dynasty were all at stake. The Roman elite walked a tightrope between ambition and caution. They desired power, prestige, and influence, but they also dreaded the consequences of unchecked desire. Their lives were a high-stakes game where the rules were always shifting, where trust was a luxury they couldn't afford, and where the ultimate prize was a double-edged sword. The traditional narrative tends to overlook the complexities of their everyday lives. They were daughters first learning the arts of feminine beauty and refinement, then later becoming wives and mothers, upholding the ideals of modesty, piety, and domestic virtue. Their days revolved around household duties, overseeing the preparation of meals, managing slaves, and ensuring the proper rearing of children. They engaged in their own forms of business, managing lucrative enterprises, investing in property, and accumulating wealth that rivaled their male counterparts. In fact, many of Rome's most famous fortunes were built or expanded by the astute management of women. Roman women were also key players in the social life of their time. They hosted lavish parties, receiving guests and exchanging gifts and gossip, thereby solidifying alliances and staying informed about the latest news. Patronage and clientele were important aspects of their roles, with elite women often acting as patrons to lower-status women, offering them financial support and guidance. Moreover, Roman women had access to education, including literature, philosophy, and even rhetoric, enabling them to participate in intellectual discussions and shape public opinion. Some, like Julia Misa and her daughter Julia Misa, used their literacy and intellect to produce written works that explored themes of female identity and experience. The contradictions in their daily lives, the balance between societal expectations and personal agency, the negotiation of power within a patriarchal system, and the impact of their wealth and status on their everyday choices make the lives of elite Roman women a compelling study in the complexities of gender roles and individual agency in a bygone era. His morning might be filled with hearings, debates in the Senate, or meeting influential allies. Public appearances demanded an air of authority, so the senator would stand tall, his face impassive, his voice resonant as he engaged in the business of governing the empire. Once back home, lunch would be a more relaxed affair, perhaps enjoyed in a private dining room with family or close friends. The topic of conversation could range from current affairs to literature, philosophy, or the latest gossip from the imperial court. Afternoons might be dedicated to private business or leisure activities. Wealthy senators might own vineyards or farms, which they would visit to oversee operations or simply relax away from the city's clamor. Others might spend their time in the forum, engaging in commerce or socializing. For some, retirement meant a retreat into scholarship. Many senators were patrons of literature, and some, like the historian Livy, wrote their own works, detailing the glories of Rome. Evenings could be spent in the theater, watching a play or the athletic contests. In the Circus Maximus, dinner parties were frequent, a chance to network, exchange gossip, and cement alliances, all under the pretense of enjoying fine food and wine. The night might end with a visit to a brothel, a common enough occurrence for the Romans, before returning home, either to the applause of the crowd or the quiet solitude of one's bedroom. Each day was different. Each day brought new challenges, but the routine offered a semblance of order in a world that was never truly predictable. Join us as we explore the material culture, daily routines, and social interactions that unfolded within these four walls, shedding light on a side of Roman life rarely seen in the annals of history. And power, they also harbored hidden realities, especially behind the closed doors of the master bedrooms. These intimate spaces offer a glimpse into the complexities of Roman life. The decorations here were more subdued, often featuring scenes from mythology or philosophy, creating an atmosphere conducive to relaxation and privacy. However, beyond the aesthetic, these chambers held deeper significance as the heart of the household's religious duties. The chief god of the Roman household was the Lares, the ancestral spirits who were believed to dwell in the home. A small shrine with an image of the La Familiaris, the household god, was usually present, indicating the central role religion played in daily life. The bedroom also reflected the gender dynamics of Roman society. While women were expected to manage the household affairs and maintain decorum, men's bedrooms were more public, often doubling as offices where they received visitors and conducted business. The contrast between the public persona of power and the private individual seeking solace is a stark reminder that even in the height of their glory, Romans were complex human beings grappling with the same desires for comfort, privacy, and spiritual fulfillment. Despite the opulence and the power they commanded, their homes were also sanctuaries where they could shed their public personas and retreat into the more private moments of life. These personal spaces offered a haven from the glare of the public eye, a place where they could relax and connect with their families or even commune with their ancestors. In the end, they were not just mighty rulers, but also ordinary men and women trying to balance the weight of their public responsibilities with the simple joys of private life. The Roman house. A glimpse into material culture and domestic life. The interiors of a Roman house tell us a lot about the people who lived there. They reveal their wealth, their tastes, and their status in Roman society. The atrium, usually decorated with a fountain or an altar, symbolized the household's connection to the gods and ancestors. Frescoes and mosaics adorned the walls, often depicting idyllic landscapes or scenes from mythology. Imported marble gave a touch of grandeur to floors and columns, while couches, chairs, and tables made of wood or bronze provided both comfort and style. Roman houses also housed libraries, showcasing the elite's love for literature and philosophy, as well as dining rooms with triclinium couches where meals were turned into social events. The architecture and design elements of Roman houses were not just aesthetically pleasing, but also served practical purposes in a Mediterranean climate. Features like peristyles, colonnaded walkways surrounding gardens, provided shade and allowed for comfortable outdoor living even during the hottest months. Windows were strategically placed to maximize natural light and ventilation, making indoor spaces more habitable. Moreover, Roman houses were designed to accommodate large families and slaves. In the case of the domus, the typical residence of senators and other elites, wings and courtyards allowed for multiple families to reside within the same household. The combination of aesthetics, practicality, and the need for multi-generational living created a domestic space that was uniquely Roman. Senatorial routines. A day in the life of power and politics. As dawn broke over Rome, the day of a senator began with a series of rituals, hidden realities, the unspoken truths behind closed doors. While Roman houses were bastions of wealth, daily life for women and elite. Roman society. While elite Roman women are often remembered for their roles as influential figures in their own right, unspoken anxieties, the hidden fears that haunt the gilded lives. In spite of their wealth, their social standing, and their considerable power. In the winding corridors and echoing chambers of these grand houses, the unspoken truth was that even in the midst of luxury and power, there was a constant hum of fear, a shared anxiety that bound them together. Today, we venture into the heart of the Eternal City, as final days to uncover the secrets and symbolism embedded within. His dethronement at the hands of the Germanic general Odoacer marked a definitive conclusion, ending a chapter that had commenced nearly 5 centuries earlier with the establishment of Rome as an imperial seat of power. Rather, Rome's swan song was a protracted affair, a gradual crescendo of disintegration, marked by an intricate interplay of factors that challenged the very foundations of its greatness. In 455, the sack of Rome by the Visigoths, under the leadership of King Alaric II, stands as a chilling testament to the empire's waning defenses. Rome, once considered impregnable, found itself ransacked and its citizens subjected to unimaginable atrocities. Shortly thereafter, in 461, the death of Emperor Majorian ushered in a new era of instability. A combination of factors, including excessive taxation, debasement of currency, and a crippled infrastructure, led to widespread poverty, destitution, and social unrest. This unassuming gateway served as the point of entry into the gruesome world of the underground gladiatorial training facilities, or the so-called rudies, but in the calculated disregard for their very humanity. Here, amidst the echoing silence of the underground chambers, men were stripped of their individuality. The roar of the roaring crowds faded into a murmur, replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the distant cries of vendors. Members of this enigmatic group, drawn from various walks of life, ranging from influential senators to disillusioned soldiers, came together in the shadows to plot the downfall of the decadent Roman Empire. Cassius, a former military officer and senator, harbored a deep-seated resentment towards the ruling elites, whom he saw as the architects of Rome's decline. Within the claustrophobic confines of the catacombs, where whispers carried the weight of life and death, the conspirators knew that every murmured word could be their last. Trust became a luxury they could not afford. Every new recruit, every clandestine meeting, brought with it the risk of exposure and the specter of imminent danger. The paranoia that gripped the catacombs became as suffocating as the underground chambers themselves, turning the fight for Rome's future into a desperate struggle for survival. His vision of a reformed Rome, free from the shackles of tyranny and decay, resonated with the disillusioned masses, transforming him into a symbol of resistance against the oppressive regime. As the weight of centuries pressed down, the specter of oblivion loomed large, yet within the Pantheon's celestial dome, a glimmer of hope persisted. For here, amidst the echoes of ancient prayers, the spirit of Roman ingenuity refused to surrender. The Pantheon, once a temple to all gods, now stood as a testament to human resilience, sheltering those who dared to dream of a brighter dawn. And as long as its mighty dome defied the relentless march of time, the flame of Roman civilization endured, waiting for a single spark to ignite its rebirth. As the conspiracy deepened, Cassius forged alliances with like-minded senators and influential figures, creating a formidable network of dissidents ready to defy the odds and challenge the seemingly invincible empire. In the heart of the city, amidst the cacophony of commerce, there existed a covert community of artisans whose craft was shrouded in secrecy and mystique. They were the unseen heroes of the Roman military machine, ensuring that the legions were equipped to face their enemies. But as the Western Roman Empire teetered on the brink of collapse, the armorers' trade took on a darker hue. With the specter of invasion looming large on the horizon, their workshops became hives of feverish activity. The relentless demand for weapons and armor created an atmosphere of urgency, driving these artisans to work day and night to meet the insatiable needs of the military machine. And so, amidst the encroaching darkness, the armorers of Rome toiled ceaselessly, their hammers ringing out a mournful dirge as they crafted the tools of war that would determine the fate of the empire. These were the armorers, the creators of the instruments of war and the silent architects of conflict. Their workshops, tucked away in the labyrinthine alleys of Rome, were sanctuaries of skill and precision, where the raw materials of war were transformed into deadly instruments of destruction. Their motives varied, born out of a potent mix of disillusionment, ambition, and a yearning for a better future. Fueled by a potent blend of idealism and desperation, these rebels sought to overthrow the decaying regime and usher in a new era for Rome. Amidst this hush, the senators made their way to the catacombs, their footsteps echoing in the subterranean tunnels. Here, in the hushed stillness of the burial chambers, they engaged in secretive rituals and whispered conversations. The catacombs became their sanctuary, a place where they could shed the burdens of public perception and engage in clandestine activities free from the prying eyes of the populace. Their names forgotten, their stories erased, and they were reduced to nothing more than expendable tools of imperial spectacle. Here, Amidst a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers hidden beneath the grandeur of the baths, a brutal and unforgiving regime awaited those condemned to the perilous life of a gladiator. The recruits, often drawn from the lowest echelons of society, including slaves and prisoners, were subjected to a grueling regimen designed to transform them into ruthless fighting machines. The Rudes was a crucible of pain and endurance, where the gladiators toiled tirelessly under the watchful eyes of their trainers, honing their combat skills and learning the intricacies of deadly combat. It was here that their bodies were scarred and broken, only to be patched up and pushed back into the arena again and again. The plight of the impoverished masses, exacerbated by dwindling grain supply, soaring inflation, and the breakdown of trade networks, paints a grim portrait of a society succumbing to economic despair. The exorbitant taxes levied by successive emperors, intended to finance military campaigns and maintain imperial authority, only compounded the financial hardships faced by Roman citizens. The debasement of the Roman currency, initially undertaken to bolster short-term revenues, resulted in hyperinflation that devastated the economy. Rome's vital trade routes, once arteries of commerce, became increasingly hazardous, leading to the stagnation of economic activity and depriving the city of essential resources. This dire economic situation, far from being an isolated anomaly, was a persistent feature of late antique Rome, underscoring the severity and longevity of the challenges confronting the empire. His successor, Emperor Libius Severus, grappled with a series of revolts and usurpations, further weakening the empire's structural integrity. During this tumultuous period, Rome, deprived of strong and decisive leadership, descended into a vortex of lawlessness and disorder, exacerbating the conditions that had been steadily eroding its foundations. To comprehend the demise of the Western Roman Empire, we must traverse a labyrinthine narrative that encompasses the collapse of its institutional mechanisms, the disintegration of its economic backbone. Pope Pius II, who took up the mantle of leadership in 462. His papacy coincided with a watershed moment in the history of Western civilization. Originally established as a deliberative body, the Senate had evolved into a powerful institution, wielding considerable influence over imperial appointments and policy. Yet, as the empire's fortunes waned, the Senate's role shifted dramatically. Facing the prospect of extinction, its members became ardent advocates of conservative values, fiercely resisting reforms that they perceived as detrimental to Rome's traditional institutions. Their staunch opposition to change, coupled with a growing sense of desperation, transformed the Senate into a stumbling block, impeding the very reforms that were essential to the empire's survival. As the Western Roman Empire teetered on the brink of collapse, Pius II emerged as a pivotal figure, striving to preserve the temporal and spiritual legacy of Rome. His efforts to protect and defend the city, coupled with his significant contributions to Christian doctrine and papal authority, painted him as a symbol of resilience in an age of decline and the erosion of its social fabric, all while contending with the shadow of external threats that loomed ever larger on the horizon. The repercussions of this monumental shift reverberated far and wide, reshaping the geopolitical landscape of Europe and setting in motion forces that would contribute to the emergence of medieval Christendom. In the year 541 AD, the specter of pestilence swept through the bustling metropolis, leaving in its wake a trail of devastation that would irrevocably alter the course of Rome's destiny. Amidst the chaos and suffering, two figures emerged, their actions driven by desperation and fear. The first, Emperor Majorian, driven by blind panic, resorted to the most extreme measure, issuing an edict that sealed the fate of some 100,000 individuals. They were banished from the city walls, their presence deemed a threat to the precarious equilibrium of the ailing empire. The second, Pope Leo I, faced with a crisis of faith and reason, turned his gaze skyward, seeking divine intervention. He organized a procession of unprecedented scale, mobilizing thousands upon thousands of Christians to converge upon the catacombs. Here, amidst the hallowed tombs of early Christian martyrs, he fervently prayed for the plague's swift remission. The pivotal year of 476 AD witnessed the deposition of Romulus Augustus, the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire. Yet as the mists of antiquity envelop us, revealing the stark realities of Rome's demise, it becomes increasingly evident that no single moment, no edict, battle, or deposition can encapsulate the essence of its decline. The latter half of the 5th century AD proved to be a crucible for the Roman Empire, a period of relentless turmoil that threatened to shatter the remnants of imperial authority. Yet amidst this maelstrom of crisis and upheaval, One individual emerged as a beacon of continuity and resistance. As the Western Roman Empire spiraled into chaos, the machinations of the Roman Senate took on a heightened significance. Rome's economic woes during the decline of the Western Roman Empire were both extensive and deeply distressing. Amidst the sprawling ruins of the Baths of nestled in the very heart of ancient Rome, lay the Porta Matronia, an entrance that concealed a dark and disturbing reality. However, the true horror of the gladiatorial training grounds lay not just in the physical torment inflicted upon the gladiators. As darkness descended upon the ruins of the Colosseum, a hush fell over the crowd. Within the cryptic labyrinth of the catacombs, a clandestine organization flourished, united by a common purpose and bound by oaths of secrecy. Amongst the most prominent members of this underground movement was the charismatic Gaius Cassius Longinus, a man whose ideals and ambitions clashed violently with the decadence of imperial Rome. As the web of intrigue tightened around them, these rebels operated under the constant shadow of betrayal. And so, amidst the haunting silence of the catacombs, a secret society thrived, bound by ideals, united in purpose, and forever haunted by the specter of danger. In the fading light of twilight, the streets of Rome echoed with the rhythmic clang of hammers on metal. For these armorers, their trade was more than just a means of livelihood. It was a sacred duty, a vital cog in the machinery of imperial might. Amidst the solemn grandeur of the Pantheon, the dying embers of the Roman Empire flickered precariously.